Well, welcome everybody from across the globe to our pregame show for what is a landmark inaugural session of the Targeting Healthy Longevity Conference. We've got with us our colleagues from the diabetes and cardiovascular world, Jay Skyler and Thomas Pieper, and our preeminent immunologist out in Stanford, Dr. Larry Steinman, Thomas Seoh, Executive Vice President of the Kitalys Institute. I am Fleming, and we are so glad you can join us as we get warmed up for what will be a really amazing and important discussion. So, Thomas Seoh, you've been with it along with Larry from the beginning. We started in London next to Wembley Stadium with the 2017 version, which at that point we called Targeting Metabesity, but we have come back to the more positive term of Targeting Healthy Longevity as the conference title. Thomas, what is your sort of sense of where we have come from and where we're going?
That's an excellent question, Zan. The geroscience space has made tremendous progress over the last couple of decades. Not that there weren't, certainly there's research before then, but in the general public and in big pharma, if you remember, Zan, when we tried to interest big pharma in 2017, there are almost no takers. And what a difference a few years makes. First of all, the explosion of longevity conferences and the research that has advanced. And now we have a class of drugs that has captivated the world in the GLP-1s. And I think that these have worked to bring healthy longevity to the forefront of the public's imagination. So we're on the hockey stick part of the curve. So I think that we were there early. And we are delighted to be continuing, to keep tabs on this incredibly important space.
Well said. And it's interesting. We have a tie that binds three folks, almost like a Hollywood Squares link, and that we have Jay Skyler, Larry Steinman, and Thomas Pieper, who are all in some way connected to type 1 diabetes. And we could talk a lot about that, but just as importantly and particularly relevant to today, Larry, you are a preeminent immunologist and have an abiding interest in inflammation. And that is one of the subjects of our upcoming session with Monica Bertagnolli and Victor Dzau, Peter Libby.
Welcome, Monica.
Hello there. How are you?
Well, Monica, we didn't expect you to come this early, but we're delighted and honored to have you.
Well, I'm glad I could join early. Thanks so much.
Well, we will make good use of it. We have we're calling this our pregame show. We have Peter Libby, who will be moderating in just a moment.
Hi, Monica.
Hey, Peter. So good to see you.
You are both, you have a Harvard connection, both of you, and it's still pretty strong for Peter. And great to have that. And Victor Dzau likewise has that background. He'll join us at the top of the hour, I'm sure.
Well, don't.
But I was just, I was just going to Larry Steinman about his preeminence in immunology and inflammation, and that sweeps across so many different therapeutic areas. Type 1 diabetes being one tie that binds all of it, or many of us on this screen. Larry, any words of wisdom about the significance of our panelists, or not panelists, but our speakers that will be coming up? and you're on mute. You'll have to unmute.
Thank you for inviting me, and I really appreciate the speakers who really cover a very important swath of science, medical science on the globe. The connections between inflammation and medicines that we use to both combat disorders of metabolism, including atherosclerosis, high blood pressure, all surprisingly, at least to some, have tremendous anti-inflammatory effects. So I talk about ACE inhibitors. I could say the same for statins. The events that they're modulating, for instance, with statins, germination, farnesylation, go right down the pathways of major inflammatory responses involving kinase pathways. And indeed, they've been attempted in small trials to modulate diseases that we think of as primarily inflammatory. And you could add to that now the GLP-1 modulators. When you put them into experimental models of inflammation, neuroinflammation, they work wonderfully. They also have some early data that they work in degenerative diseases, including Parkinson's. And one of the companies has 2 simultaneous phase 3 trials in Alzheimer's. So the interconnectedness between inflammation, degeneration, metabolism, it's right in front of our eyes. So those are my comments at the moment.
Well, interconnectedness is a great term, and we do that at multiple levels. Jay Skyler has certainly been a connector across the cardiometabolic world. And Jay, I'll ask you, given the furor going on in the GLP-1 agonist space, can you imagine these therapies being used in relatively healthy populations to reduce risk, not only of chronic diseases, but maybe even cancer?
I think so. We need more data for some of that, but the data are emerging in obese people without concomitant diabetes, that there are profound beneficial effects on cardiac outcomes, on renal outcomes, and in neurodegenerative diseases. And so there's a lot going on. I personally have been using a GLP-1 receptor agonist for now more than 19 years. I was involved with getting the first one approved by ADA, which was April 28th, 1985. So we had our 19th birthday this past week, and I've been on the medication ever since approval. Not that one. I've progressed and now take a week.
Well, you are a poster boy for that class.
And with little or no side effects, so people can tolerate them long term. And the beneficial effects I've seen across the spectrum of things. I originally took it for glucose, but found that my lipids improved, my creatinine stabilized, and I think that GLP-1s need to be studied more in a healthy population as well. And the issue is in as we go into a healthy, non-overweight population, should we find a dose that doesn't cause weight reduction as a primary thing? Because I think that would be helpful to have the GLP-1 effect. And I worry about that with type 1 diabetes, because one of the things that the GLP-1s clearly and unambiguously do is reduce ER stress and oxidative stress within beta cells and improve beta cell health. Consequently, I see them as a fundamental therapy in the long run for type 1 diabetes as well as for type 2. But many of those people do not need to lose weight. They actually are on the thinner side anyway. So we need to find a dose or a regimen that you can use without weight reduction if you don't need it, and test those in terms of many of the outcomes that will be talked about when we talk about healthy longevity during the course of today.
That's a great summary. And speaking of type 1 diabetes, of course, Thomas Seoh and Jay are are real mavens in the type 1 space, but I was delighted to find out that Thomas is also, in effect, a geroscientist, and that he's got some very exciting news that he cannot get in, it can't be too specific about, but let's say that it's very much related to the topic today. So Thomas, I know you can't speak too much about that, but you tell us what you can about how you were interested in the topic.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for adding me to this fantastic panel. I'm the only one from Europe currently, so that's good. So whatever I say will be taken. Well, so as you mentioned, I was moving, or we're still doing research in type 1 diabetes, and Jay knows pretty well. There's the INODIA consortium and other large initiatives that we have here in Europe. But we're also focusing a lot into the role of metabolism in aging. And by doing so, we were able to put together a group of basic scientists and clinical scientists and applied for major funding here in Austria from our government. And it's still under embargo in a certain sense, but we got approved, and there will be 30 million euros in the next 5 years that will go into translational research around the topic of metabolism, the role of metabolism in healthy aging. And I think it nicely connects many of the aspects that have been mentioned before. So obesity, cardiovascular disease, the role of inflammation, and all that. And my main topic is how can we find validated surrogate parameters for clinical trials, which is, I think, still a major topic. Thank you.
Oh, that's terrific, Thomas. And we look forward to the announcement that I think will be forthcoming early next week. Monica, I was with one of your colleagues who is a leader in our field. And I should mention that NIH has a major role in supporting geroscience, but Dr. Luigi Ferrucci spoke glowingly of you and your participation in a recent gathering related to the National Institute of Aging and the geroscience efforts that NIH supports. So we can't wait to hear more about what NIH is doing and within the geroscience space. But of course, you've got a huge brief to direct the many different institutes of NIH. And wow, what a great thing that you are doing it.
Oh, well, it's what a tremendous honor to be, this institution that I've admired so much my entire career, and now actually to be able to be here and work with everyone to really try to, take their great ideas and make us and help us work across so many boundaries that have been set up that are, that we don't need. Can I ask a practical question before we get started into the main session? I know my team sent slides. Am I the only? I don't need to use them. I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to use my time and have it be the best interaction.
We've got your slides. They're great. We're ready to show them. And
okay.
Peter likewise has some slides that he's going to be using. So
I was fascinated by your slide.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that a little bit, but I think what happened in the aging group that what I really like to think about is that there are 5 main areas, and realizing that all these areas are kind of artificial but and related, but 5 main areas that just are cross-cutting, lifelong, and for all of health. And you've already hit some of them: the immune response, inflammation, the ability to heal, and the point is that each one of these things are natural human processes that we can't live without, but they can also be subverted to create disease. And it's interesting that these processes that we need throughout our whole body are also the ones that have commonality when they go awry across all organ systems, right? And so what are they? They're the immune regulation, the inflammatory response, for wound healing. They are cellular aging and the senescence program. You all tell me the crossover, understanding that there's definitely leaky boundaries between these, metabolism, and then the last one that we don't want to forget is infectious disease, which has crafted our bodies from the day our relationship with with other microorganisms has crafted our bodies from birth, right? So the deeper you look into each of these 5 areas, the more you see that they span so many different diseases, especially the chronic ones.
That's such a beautiful summary. We could almost go home now, but
well, you brought this up. This was the discussion with the National Institute of Aging retreat. We were talking about this, and they reminded me that, well, cellular senescence has a role. All of those things affect cellular senescence. And so, what's the pure reductionist approach? Who knows? But I do think it's useful thinking about these categories.
Yes, indeed. Well, we'll be getting into them a bit more in just a few minutes, but this is terrific to have already nearly 200 people gathered before we're even starting the formal discussion. And this is a global audience, and for those for whom the time is too late or early, they'll be able to watch, of course, the video recordings, and we find that often many more do view the conference after it's held than in real time. So this will have some reach. And NIH's involvement from the top is really a great sign of affirmation that this premier biomedical research organization is in the mix, and very surely NIH is. So we thank you so much for being here. And of course, the National Academy of Medicine has a flagship program in targeting healthy longevity. Victor Dzau will be on in just a moment, fellow cardiologist, Peter. And so he will have his own perspective to add to the mix, and how delighted we are to have Victor.
Sam, do you see that Kristen has signed on?
Oh, good.
Anchor desk.
Kristen, come on. Let's share your screen or show your camera. Turn on your camera.
Hey there. How are you?
Hello, Kristen. Fortney is a CEO, or is the CEO of a very important company, BioAge, which has an agent that could have all kinds of benefits related to targeting healthy longevity. And so we'll hear much more during that panel discussion. But Kristen, we're delighted to have you. And the point here is that we are breaking down the silos between industry, government, and we hope the regulatory community and the investment community, because we do need resources to keep things going, both in the government and in private industry. But Kristen is actually represents a clinical stage company with a peptide that could help diabetes, obesity, and what we call sarcopenia. We'll hear more about that during the panel discussion, which will pick up on themes that come out of the fireside chat that will soon start. And if you're just joining us, we are here in our so-called pre-game show. We actually have our major participants, Dr. Monica Bertagnolli and Dr. Peter Libby, who will be joined by Victor Dzau in just a few minutes for that fireside chat. But in the meantime, we're just having fun speaking together with panelists who will be coming in shortly. And Thomas, you may be minding the chat and finding people to say hello to. We're sorry that it's not feasible to put everybody on camera, but one of the gratifying things about this conference is that we see so many people from across the globe, and we do feel this kinship that is reflected in our community. Thomas, Thomas, sir, anything that you want to bring in from the community you can see?
Well, there's a technical glitch. Sorry about that. Not everybody's names are showing, but we do have, we're hopefully getting to a couple hundred attendees before the start of the fireside chat. I didn't really have a chance to look through all of the names, but just welcome.
Well, I'm thrilled to see Dr. Mahmood Khan, who has just joined us. And for those who don't know Dr. Khan, he is not only an endocrinologist, but has had some major roles in industry, and right now is in a very important position as the CEO of Evolution. He'll be joining the panelists who will follow our fireside chat at 1 o'clock Eastern. And Mahmood, we're so glad you could join us. You may be coming from a distance, but we welcome you.
Delighted to join. Actually, I was listening from the start, but I was on the attendee side, and I
Okay.
realized that. But click on a different link. I'm dialing in from Riyadh, so just 7 hours
All
ahead
right.
of me.
Well, just 8 time zones away, I guess, or something like that. I'm not sure. But again, reflecting our global, very diverse audience, diverse in many, many ways. And it needs to be that way to undertake this moonshot project. We are just 5 minutes before the top of the hour. And back to Larry Steinman, co-chairman and co-founder of this conference. Very honored to have been working with Larry for many years. He is quite an amazing therapeutic developer as well as basic scientist. So Larry, in a few minutes, words of wisdom from the founder of the conference. And you're on mute.
I think it's remarkable how well things have evolved. That at each stage, we're bringing together people who might not know each other and exposing them to new ideas. I think we've reached a pinnacle with the guests that are on today's program that we see on the screen. I just want to mention that our next conference on longevity is going to be at the intersection of neuroscience, inflammation, and the degenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's. The guest list is being formed, but the co-chairs will be Lee Rubin at Harvard and myself, and we'll be having that conference on the 7th of June. Stay tuned for the auspicious speakers that will be on that panel. Zan?
Well, that's great, Larry. I'm so glad you mentioned the date. Save that date. It will be a virtual conference, so very easy to attend either in real time or virtually or after it's been held. But we are looking to get back together in a real meeting, and we may do that towards the end of the year. Stay tuned for an announcement or two about that. But that is our aspiration, to come back to be a regular meeting where we can do more than just connect by screens and be face to face. And there will be other conferences or other sessions of the conference over the next few months. So stay tuned as we announce the particular topics, but do save that date, June 7th, for the session on novel approaches for targeting neurodegenerative diseases. And Larry is certainly a major force in that discipline.
And welcome, Dr. Victor Dzau.
Yes, Victor, so glad to have you. And likewise, you are so busy. I don't know where we find you, but we are thrilled to have you join our conference.
You're on mute, Victor.
I said you're from Monaco, so I have to be here.
Okay, well, that's right. Monica beat you all, but that's great. And so we're now complete, and we're almost to the very top of the hour. We'll just start in about 45 seconds.